Welcome back to the channel, guys. Say you have around $50,000 to spend on a high-performance premium hot hatch. Between the Acura Integra Type S and the Mk8 Volkswagen Golf R, which should you choose? That's the question I'm going to try to answer in today's head-to-head comparison. We're currently sitting in a 2024 Acura Integra Type S, and it's bone stock with the exception of wheel spacers. The owner, Lawrence, picked this up as a daily. He used to own a 90s Integra as well, and MSRP of this car at the time was around $52,000. Of course, the dealership added a few things like the Alcantara wrapped steering wheel and the fancy door sills. We're powered by a 2-liter turbocharged K20C8 engine. It makes 320 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. 6-speed manual is your only choice of transmission, and is front-wheel drive. It does have a mechanical LSD and Honda's dual-axis front suspension, which reduces torque steer. Oh, I forgot to mention, Lawrence also added a Mishimoto coolant tank because the OEM one cracked. Thankfully, I haven't run into that issue with my Type S yet, knock on wood. So we'll drive this car first, and then we'll hop into that Mk8 Golf R with a DSG transmission. That car is priced a bit lower at around $48,000 MSRP, but that was also a 1-year older model year. So it's front-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive, manual versus dual clutch, Japanese / built in America versus German. So where should you spend your money if you want a well-balanced, all-in-one, fun-to-drive hot hatch? Let's find out. We're on 19-inch wheels, PS4S rubber, 265s all around, Brembo brakes as standard. I mean, this car comes with everything. Adaptive dampers, 3 settings. Speaking of which, we'll go into individual engine and gauges in Sport Plus, steering and suspension in Sport. Some crackles and pops from this stock exhaust in Sport Plus. There is a little bit of torque steer, but even without a tune, this engine feels so powerful. Wow. This is such a quick car from the factory. And the front end is so sharp. .7,000 RPM redline. It pulls pretty hard, nearly to the top. This is one of those few 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinders that actually likes to rev. Good steering feel. Yeah, in 2nd gear corners, 3rd gear corners, you do have to watch out for that torque steer. I think these wheel spacers, 15 mil in the front, 20 mil in the rear, the fronts do compromise the suspension geometry a bit, so I do think this torque steers more than a completely stock Type S. Wow, yeah, that's a lot of torque steer, but 310 pound-feet, that's no joke, as I almost run over that little rodent. Whoa, my phone. The suspension of this car in stock form is so capable. Sport Plus is a bit overdamped for this road, but Sport mode is just about perfect. The car corners nice and flat. The 6-speed manual is a joy to use. This one is completely stock, unlike mine, which has the Acuity short shifter. So this is lower effort, not quite as mechanical, not quite as tight, but still one of the best manuals in a new car right now. Oh geez. All right, phone in pocket. There is some lag below 3,500 RPM. Traction for a front-wheel drive car. I've driven plenty of Type S's, mostly my own, on this same road, but every time I do, I'm caught off guard a little bit. I drove a BRZ and an NT3 Miata just before this, and oh my goodness, the difference in acceleration is shocking. These brakes are really good too. I mean, I've done probably close to 15 track days on mine. Brembo calipers with just pads and fluid, still holding up well. Very confidence-inspiring car outside of that torque steer, which I do think is definitely exacerbated with these spacers. This car even handles the downhill surprisingly well. Oh yes. I do wish the engine made more sound from inside the cabin. Yes, this valved exhaust in Sport Plus will do the crackles and pops, but from inside the cabin, I do think it's a bit too quiet. Into comfort mode, soften up the dampers, the steering. It becomes a perfectly livable daily. I daily drove mine in stock form for a few months before I put the Öhlins on and the wheels and tires. Outside of elevated tire noise, which has always been a problem with the Type Rs and Type Ss, really no complaints with this car on a daily basis. Interior feels really high quality. Maybe doesn't feel like a $52,000 car if you're comparing this to non-performance focused luxury cars, but considering you get so much performance, this interior is still really good. I love the simplicity of the controls. Outside of the infotainment, everything is a physical button or knob. Ergonomically, very simple to use, very easy to get used to, very low learning curve. And I think visually, it looks great as well. Nice materials, soft touch plastics. These seats do not hold you in very well. I've said it 1,000 times. I still track my Integra Type S with the stock seats, but on a daily basis, they're perfectly livable, and at least you get some power adjustment on the driver's side. The hatch is huge. The back seat has more legroom than you'd expect. It's just a solid all-around hot hatch. But say you want to go German, say you want the confidence of all-wheel drive, say you don't really like the way the Type S looks. It is a bit out there, I will admit, although I love how mine looks with the stance. But the Volkswagen Golf R has been around for a long time, and it's got a few tricks up its sleeve to hopefully make it as fun to drive as this Type S. So let's find out if Volkswagen succeeded. All right, we're now in the 2023 Volkswagen Mark 8 Golf R 20th edition. This is actually just an original Mark 8 with the 8.5 wheels that Matthew has thrown on. Powered by a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine, 315 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque if you get the 7-speed DSG dual clutch. If you get it with the 6-speed manual, the torque figure goes down by 15 pound-feet to 280. Compared to the Type S, it makes, on paper, 5 fewer horsepower, 15 fewer pound-feet of torque, and it weighs about 300 pounds more, 3,500 pounds. That is not lightweight for a little hatchback, especially because this has a smaller back seat and less cargo capacity. But what that weight does get you is all-wheel drive. Volkswagen's 4-motion system with a rear diff and a drift mode, which we're not going to use today, but that rear LSD should help this car feel very capable coming out of corners. This comes standard with sport exhaust, adaptive dampers, variable ratio, electric power steering, 19-inch wheels, and these massive brakes. The only mod Matthew has put on is an H&R rear sway bar. $48,000 MSRP for this 2023 model year, but brand new, if you're looking at an 8.5, it should be very close to the price of a brand new Integra Type S. First impressions of the interior, this feels really nice, to be honest. I'm impressed. In terms of build quality, steering wheel feels very nice, perforated leather, blue stitching, nice big paddle shifters. The owner did swap out the center console with this matte material, which definitely looks way better than piano black. Unfortunately, we do have the haptic buttons here. As you can see here, very crisp and clear, high contrast displays. But man, these piano black bezels are so huge. We'll put it into this special Nürburgring mode. You can also go into custom, where you can select between a lot of different settings, 15-stage adaptive dampers, pull down here, ESC into sport. And then for the transmission, we'll put it into S+, and then when you pull the paddle shifter, it puts it into manual mode. So it will bounce off the rev limiter. This engine is pretty loud in Nürburgring mode. This valved exhaust combined with a higher red line in this mode. Wow, very quick upshift there. And downshift. This engine does make more sound from inside the cabin. I do like this compared to the Type S, which is just too muted. No torque steer. That's the biggest difference I'm noticing immediately. This is easier to drive quickly, at least initially. Let's see about these corners. Steering weight is quite heavy in this mode. Oh yeah. The big difference here is the front end is not as sharp as the Type S front end. It still turns in nicely, but it doesn't have that immediacy. You turn the steering wheel and immediately the front end responds. In this, you just feel like there's a little bit of a delay, a little bit of mushiness in its responses. It is a quick car. I actually think once you're up to speed and you don't have any wheel spin to deal with, the Type S does feel like it accelerates a bit harder. And this might have a bit less turbo lag, around 3,000, 3,500 RPM. Oh, taking those bumps mid-corner, this suspension is much, much softer. The damping is way less aggressive than the Type S, even in Sport mode. In Sport Plus, the Type S is over-damped for this road. Oh, there's that rev limiter. So this engine won't rev quite as high as the Type S engine. Looks like maybe 67 or 6,800 RPM is where that limiter kicks in. But it does pull pretty hard to the top. There's a little bit of a grabbiness to the brakes. Doesn't feel quite as natural as the Type S Brembos, but these are still perfectly adequate for hard driving. It doesn't pull quite as hard, especially in third gear. But again, no torque steer. That is a big difference here. Driving that Type S, I mean, even in stock form, there was torque steer. Don't let Acura or Honda's marketing fool you. When you're sending that much power and torque to the front tires, you are going to feel it through the steering wheel. This car feels just easier to drive because of that one reason. And although it is soft around the edges, everything feels a little soft around the edges. So it's still cohesive. The steering response, the suspension, it's a car that just feels like its edges have been rounded off a bit in order to make it a great daily driver, which is ultimately what you want in a hot hatch, right? Or at least most people who are in the market for a hot hatch want a well-rounded, daily drivable, usable, but still fun to drive little car. So I think Volkswagen has really knocked it out of the park in that regard. But I'd be lying if I said the Type S isn't more thrilling to drive hard. It just feels that little bit more razor edged, especially just the front end. And although this one is a dual clutch and I'm a diehard manual owner, I don't know if I would prefer this with a manual, at least without some significant shifter mods. Volkswagen manuals have just never been my favorite. They're very light and kind of floppy, not very mechanical feeling. The Mark 8 GTI I drove with some shifter upgrades did feel better, but still nowhere near as good as the Type S or Type R shifter. Yeah, you can feel the extra weight of this car in the corners. It doesn't feel too heavy, it's just next to that Type S, which is pretty light for how big of a car it is. This doesn't feel quite as sharp, quite as nimble mid-corner. But coming out of corners, the lack of torque steer and and that all-wheel drive traction do go a long way. If we back it off now into comfort mode, the adaptive dampers slacking off. This car is a bit more comfortable than the Type S for sure. I think part of it could be the extra weight, the extra sound deadening. There's definitely less road noise coming through here. And this dual clutch gets the job done. Very smooth, you don't really feel the shifts. It's paired well with this 2-liter turbo. I actually think the dual clutch might be the way to go for the Mark 8 Golf R. Excellent bump absorption and comfort mode. In many ways, I do think this is the more refined hot hatch of the two. I just wish the back seat was a bit bigger. I wish there was a little bit more cargo space. I fit so much stuff in my Integra Type S, but if you don't absolutely need that extra few cubic feet and the slightly larger back seat, the Golf R, I would say, is the better daily driver, as long as you can get used to these haptic controls, which, again, I'm really not a fan of in theory, but I'm sure if I owned this car for a significant amount of time, I'd get past that learning curve. But which car would I pick? I mean, it's pretty clear, right? I already have a Type S. I put my money where my mouth is, and that's because I enjoy that extra little bit of engagement, that thrilling, dynamic nature of the Type S, because ultimately it is just a more refined Type R. And the Type R, I think, hands down, under $50,000 in the world of hatches, is still the most fun to drive, most capable, most impressive performance hatchback on sale. But if you don't absolutely need that razor-edged feel and you'd rather have a little bit more refinement and, again, the rounded edges that this Golf R offers, I think it's a really, really great option. It offers tons of performance, the assurance of all-wheel drive for slightly less money than the Type S, or if you go for a brand new one, more or less the same price. So big shout out to the owners, Lawrence and Matthew. Let me know what you think about this comparison. For your $50,000, which hot hatch would you take? Or is there an even better option out there? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.